services are reduced. Then you say the solution is to bring in private healthcare. So private companies need to come in. Don't worry, you won't have to pay out of pocket. The government will simply pay them. So that's just how this is going to work. Money will be then divided between public option, public services, and privatized healthcare, but still paid out by public funds. And so, as it turns out, the private companies can do what they want when there's no government oversight or they're not actually managed by the government. And it turns out they're interested mostly in making profit. I know that's going to scare a lot of people who are probably thinking, but I thought private healthcare solves all the problems in the world. It does sound like a good system. It's always sold to you in this way. Rich people need healthcare too, and that's true. And they're better than us. And so because they're better than us, they should be able to buy the services they need. So why not have that as an option? When they buy their own services, very expensive good services, then that'll free up more space in the public services for the poor to be able to use the general system. That pitch, it just doesn't play out in terms of how this actually comes to pass. Similar problems have happened in other areas where this same strategy has been employed. Looking at you, Ontario. Looking at you, England. Gutting the public healthcare system and then having everyone say the public healthcare system sucks and then saying, well, the solution is to bring in privatization. It will eventually lead to more and more privatization. And it sucks because it's eroding a lot of the things that people actually say is one of the reasons why they're like, coming to Canada or living in Canada. Also, the Conservatives in this country have decided they finally found the marginalized group that they hate more than immigrants. And it's unhoused people and addicts. And so right now there's a very good push and a successful one to vilify people who don't have homes and people who are addicted to drugs. And that's kind of going to be the strategy going forward because it works. It worked in my mayoral election. We got a cop mayor because he pushed a very strong message of the streets are overrun with addicts, which are often portrayed as violent criminals. And it's working on the federal election. Pierre is using it very successfully to go after Justin Trudeau. And it's working for Doug Ford, who is now trying to shut down safe injection sites while promoting other safe injection sites, aka bars, loves beer, loves alcohol. When you walk by a bar, you're looking at a safe injection site. That's what a bar is. And so the idea being going after the addicts is the new thing. And it's one that everyone just gets on board with because, yeah, if you walk in the downtown east side of Vancouver, you'll see a lot of people who are doing drugs on the streets openly, smoking crack, shooting needles, doing all that kind of stuff. There's smashed glass everywhere. There's smashed crack pipes everywhere. I literally walk Chico around different streets sometimes because there's too much smashed glass on the ground. There's, without a question, a huge drug problem that is going down. And the solution to it is to make things infinitely worse. The problem is, I get the pitch, and I get, even if they don't want to say it out loud, the idea is, why won't they die? Is kind of the concept here, is that let's close down the safe injection sites. Let's try to limit the amount of access to naloxone and other overdose prevention kits, and then they'll all die. Once they're all dead, the problem's solved. No more addicts. The addicts just killed themselves out. It's evolution, really, Darwinism, eugenics. But it doesn't work out because homelessness is not created by a desire for homelessness. People don't live on the street because it's just, fuck the man. I don't want to pay taxes. I want to live as an outlaw and enjoy that life. It's because a lot of factors contribute towards people being unable to afford houses. It's not the most complicated topic, but as more people become homeless and more people live on the streets, they also exacerbate a lot of mental conditions they may have, as well as they will turn towards other things to try and self-medicate, often involving legal drugs you can buy right away. Walk into any store, you buy some alcohol, you can get some cigarettes, but then you'll move on to stronger stuff. Because, yeah, I've said this before, if I was living on the street, I would probably want to get wrecked. It doesn't look fun, it looks scary, and it's even scarier when you're dehumanized and treated like absolute vermin, and the reason why society sucks. We need to get rid of the safe supply. These are the words of Premier Doug Ford in speaking about the planned closure of the safe consumption sites announced last week in the Ontario government, and clearly the end desire to get rid of any idea of safe supply. Think about this little sentence of 8 words. What would the alternative to safe supply be? Trick question, because we know the answer: unsafe supply. There's only safe and unsafe supply. There's no little bit safe, and it isn't safe better than unsafe, unless you're looking to kill the problem completely, which the unsafe supply would certainly help with. But as we've seen throughout history, substance use is endemic amongst humans. I think even some animals find a way to get high. Cats like catnip. I think coffee was discovered by goats. I think that's one of those cool stories that people were noticing that there was a certain kind of goat that was getting way too energetic and hyped up, and they were wondering what the fuck, what is making these goats go so nuts? And then it was because they were eating the coffee beans, and so they were like, oh shit, oh, let me try. And then so human beings were like trying to find ways to consume the coffee beans, and eventually that's how coffee came. I think so. That's when I would listen to a podcast that explained that, but don't quote me on that, right? Comrade Junkie, thank you for the $5. Isn't Doug Ford Canada's crackhead though? Irony. The brother of Canada's crackhead, crack smoking mayor. That was his brother, Rob Ford, who's no longer with us. The question has to be asked. Doug Ford did used to be a drug dealer, though, so there's that. They used to deal weed. Does Doug Ford want drug addicts to die? Does he want contaminated drugs flowing through the streets? Drug addiction is bad enough without certain death from unsafe supply. Is he favoring the criminal element, the current purveyors of unsafe drugs? That's who he stands to benefit from limiting government supply. So this is the great irony of that. It's really easy to sell the idea to people that people who don't have homes and who are drug addicts are the greatest threats and dangers to society, because you see them. You see them on the street, and it makes you, I guess, if you've been programmed to think that they chose that life, angry. And that's why you see a lot of people who are so-called progressives who also always say, oh, yeah, but the problem's out of control. I mean, trust me, you don't have to live here. You're not in LA. You're not in San Francisco. You don't see it every single day like I see it every single day. And I'm like, I do. I literally live right next door to the downtown east side of Vancouver. I see it the second I open my door and step outside of the apartment. All of a sudden, it is going to be people using drugs all over the place, people falling over, some people even, with their clothes falling off. Like, it's really, really sad. It is profoundly and deeply sad. But the thing is, all the policies exacerbate it. All the policies of, hey, by the way, let's get rid of safe injection sites. Let's get rid of and eliminate the idea of even having safe drugs for people to use. Well, they're going to buy the drugs. They're going to find them somehow. And I'm guessing that the drug dealers on the street aren't pharmaceutical doctors who know what they're doing to the degree that they can, maintain a very safe product for their consumers to continue to buy. If anything, there's an added problem of the stronger a dose is, the more people might seek it out, especially if they're people who are deeply, deeply into addiction. You have to note that organized crime has lost territory to the government, or maybe it's the police, who also benefit from the war on drugs as they focus on taking the above-mentioned criminal element while demanding larger and larger police budgets. I'm in full support of increased public treatment and detox beds, not private for-profit operations, but publicly funded and resourced with trained health care professionals under the Canada Health Act. The provinces are not doing their jobs in delivering healthcare on many fronts, but in particular, they're failing spectacularly on mental health and addiction. The results are on our city streets. Public intoxication of any substance disturbs the public peace and places people in potentially dangerous situations. I've seen more alcohol-fueled arguments resulting in fisticuffs than I care to remember. Ugly drunks are the worst. No one should have to step over a passed-out crack addict lying on the pavement, whether they're taking their kids downtown or shopping or to school. We are all addicted to something, but we manage our addictions, some more successfully than others. If a person can't manage their addiction, they need help. But we have nowhere near the resources to help all the people who need it in the way they need it, when they need it. Our health professionals are woefully underprepared. The lack of training amongst health professionals over cannabis is quite alarming. This is a direct result of drug criminalization and resulting restrictions on research into cannabis or other illegal substances. You don't know what you don't study. The last century demonstrates the failure of our ability to come to grips with recreational illicit drug use. From prohibition in the early 20th century to the opioid crisis of the 21st, the attempt to control the consumption of mind-altering substances has failed spectacularly, with policies that haven't saved lives, only saddle people with criminal records and associated stigma of the drug addict. I bet areas around the supervised consumption sites are tough for the community. They are. I tried volunteering. I tried taking, one of my friends who's a drug addict on a regular basis to Insight to make sure he got safe supply and got to use his drugs safely and all that kind of stuff. And it is just a horrifying scene. It's a place with way more people trying to use than there are, safe areas for them to use. And the lineup is significant. They have to get their drugs tested. And everyone is so mean to you because they all are looking to get high. And they're waiting. They're all just really impatiently waiting to get high. And while they're doing that, they're just screaming profanities, and the people who work there, the volunteers, the nurses, holy shit. Like my heart goes out to you. The work that you do with very little thanks to make sure that human beings don't die. Human beings that the rest of society has said are okay to die. Like this is something that Doug Ford is effectively saying, I'm okay with mass death. I'm okay with poors dying. I'm okay with addicts dying. I'm okay with people with mental health issues dying. It's fine. They're choosing to do it. It's their choice, all of them. So that's what's happening here. Decriminalizing drugs will remove the imperative of the criminal element. It would be ridiculous to think all crime would just disappear. Anything of value is worth stealing to some. But it addresses the issue of safe supply to ensure people aren't dying from criminal, unregulated production, like they did from moonshine and bathtub gin. Also true. Back in the day, you know? I can understand why homeless people turn to drugs. You ever tried sleeping on concrete in Canada in the winter? See, I have not, but that's what I've said. Like, I get it. I know why if you had to live in those conditions. Like, people, I've interviewed people who were homeless for prolonged periods of time, and they talk about how you're perpetually sick. You can never get healthy. Have you ever had a cold that you know, lasts longer than a week, and you get a cough that you can't get rid of, so you take a couple days off work and you sleep? Yeah, you don't get that option. You're sleeping in the middle of filthy streets. You're consistently worried about your safety. You're worried about if someone's going to rob or physically or sexually assault you all the time, 24/7. You have to kind of sleep in the same way that, like, you know, people who are just ready for anything have to sleep, never truly resting. You know, it sounds horrifying. It looks horrifying. It looks unbelievably rough. And so it's one of those things where the solution to all this, we've tried everything else. The war on drugs is a complete and abject failure. And now we have the fentanyl crisis. It is so cheap to produce synthetic opioids and produce them on massive scales and then substitute other drugs for a combination of fentanyl and some stimulants. Hey, there's your cocaine. Fentanyl. Hey, there's your heroin. You know, like that seems to be where this is all headed, because again, it's so stigmatized, the very concept of why don't we provide a safe supply for people. Like, but I'm not saying you should be able to walk into a 7-Eleven and buy crack cocaine. I think that's a little absurd. And most people would agree. That's not the future I'm envisioning. But for people who need it, yes, like a prescription, they can go into a pharmacy or they can go into a safe center where they can get the drugs that they're going to be taking, whether or not you provide it for them. That's it, right? You can either give the money to criminals. You can either let the criminal, you know, the gangs that we always hear about, you know, the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world are always so mad about these, you know, super predators and these gangs of evil individuals. They need you. They need the war on drugs. Without the war on drugs, they don't make money from the drugs. They need the war to be able to profit off the drugs. So you basically enrich them in the process. The value of these things is astronomically higher than it would be had there not been a war on drugs. Like, to produce marijuana, it costs about the same as it takes to produce organic tomatoes. You're talking like $3 to $4 a pound. $3 to $4 a pound of marijuana before it was legalized in Canada, and before a lot of states started legalizing it. That could fetch you a couple $1,000s if you brought it over to the U.S. And then if you brought it all the way to New York, maybe $14,000 for that same pound. That, again, to produce costs a couple dollars in terms of, like, you know, just producing and growing vegetables. So it makes things astronomically more expensive. It makes drug dealers, gangs, organized crime fuck tons of money. It kills your citizens. It's one of those things where the war on drugs is ass backwards. And it also continues to allow a very, very mobilized and armed police state to justify continuing to increase their budgets. It's like, oh, we need this. The crime is out of control. More homeless people than ever before. What caused more homeless people than ever before? I don't want to look into that stuff. It's complicated. I don't know. The foreign investors, Chinese people, something. But whatever it is, there's more homeless people. And because of that, a lot of them are using drugs. And because of that, we need more weapons. We need more ability to be able to crack skulls. It's this really sick pattern that just results in, again, more people dying. Well, it's a good thing I installed this button, because, again, we're going to be getting so much use out of it.
Don't trust the liberals. They will betray you.
Another busy day for the French president, who has hosted a string of party leaders at the Élysée since Friday in hopes of finding a candidate for prime minister that would not immediately be toppled in a confidence vote. But that is exactly what the far-right's Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella said they planned on doing if the candidate and the government came from the left-wing New Popular Front.
So we've asked for an extraordinary session to be opened so that the Prime Minister, whoever it is, can appear before the National Assembly.
The New Popular Front, in its programme, movement and figures that personify it, today represents a danger. We will defend the country from a government that will divide French society.
A position also expressed by some of Emmanuel Macron's allies and the leader of the conservative Les Républicains party.